Pessoal, é sempre mais legal para a pessoa que está dando a aula se vocês participarem, tá bom?
Oi. Eu realmente não tenho uma câmera. Tipo, eu sei que muita gente dá desculpa de não ter câmera, mas eu realmente não tenho câmera porque eu uso PC, sabe? Eu não tenho
Sim.
webcam. É, sorry.
Aham.
Enzo, pode
Tudo
participar
bem.
pelo bate-papo então, tá bom?
Ok.
Sam, Enzo doesn't have a camera, but
Oh.
they can participate through the chat, I guess.
He's
But
going
as
to
long as you
participate
talk,
anyway.
that's okay. It's so boring giving presentations when no one speaks, so I hope you guys will ask questions.
Yeah, I
Yes,
know.
it's a bit frustrating. Now you never know what's going on the other side of the screen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I gave one last week to a Fulbright program, so I thought the students would be really engaged, and I kept asking for questions and no one, not a single.
No kidding.
Yeah,
Fulbright
I was-
students, that's
Oh.
surprising.
Yeah, I was really
That's a
surprised.
shame.
It is.
In a bad way. But that's a shame. We
Just
can
one
understand
more
teenagers,
minute.
right? But
Oh yeah, well, I understand being nervous maybe too to speak, but yeah, I think at the Fulbright level, I thought they would be more engaged.
Okay. Well, I believe we can getting started. So, hello everyone. This is our teacher Samantha from Missouri State University, and she's going to talk a little bit about branding strategies today, right, Samantha?
Right.
So I'll let you speak, and let's get it started.
Great, thanks, Marina. Like she said, I am Samantha Francka, and I'm the Marketing and Communications Director for International Programs at Missouri State. And I also teach a couple of marketing courses. I teach the intro marketing course at the university, and I also teach the highest level advertising course that the university offers. So some of this will be from my role as someone who actually practices marketing, and some is from my teaching role. So I'll try to give you an overview. This is really general. It's not super detailed, but an overview of branding and brand strategy. Juliana mentioned that there was some interest in social media too. So I put a couple of slides in here about social media brand strategy. And like I mentioned, please interrupt me or ask questions or give me feedback throughout the presentation, because that makes it way more enjoyable for all of us if we all get to engage in that way. So we'll jump in. First, I wasn't sure what everyone's background was, but I just wanted to give a brief definition of marketing. I really like Seth Godin's definition of marketing. He says, basically, if you need to persuade anyone to take any action, you're doing marketing. So this could be getting our parents to ask us or let us do something. We're having to market why they should let us do something. Universities who talk to you about coming to their school or doing marketing to you. Basically, everyone on the internet is doing some form of marketing. TV's doing marketing. Social media, there's lots of marketing happening. And politics is one of my favorite examples of marketing that maybe we don't always think about. This is a really prevalent slide in the US, probably not so much for you, but this was the first ever US presidential election televised debate. So before this debate in 1960, all of the debates between presidential candidates had been on the radio. No one saw the candidates. No one could see that they were wearing makeup or weren't wearing makeup, or that they were sweating, or that their leg was shaking because they were nervous. And John F. Kennedy really gave a marketing class like on stage during this debate. So he realized ahead of time, the lights are going to be bright. I'm going to be sweaty. I don't want to look nervous or like I'm not telling the truth. So put a lot of makeup on me, make me look good. He practiced a lot presenting in person in front of audiences and filmed and watched what he did. And President Nixon did not do that. And he said, I won't wear makeup. I'm a man. I won't practice for this. I've done debates before. And so after this presidential debate, John F. Kennedy came across looking great. and Richard Nixon came across looking like a sweaty, unsure person who didn't know what he was talking about. So that's one of my favorite examples of marketing and politics. JFK knew how to market himself. Richard Nixon was not quite ready yet for that perspective. So more specifically, and when we talk about branding and marketing, a lot of times we think about branding as kind of being the personification of a product or service or organization that we know of. So we can think of big ones like Nike, Apple, Google, these big companies. We kind of know who they are as a brand. We know the aesthetics. We know what their brand looks like. We know what their products look like, how we're going to interact with their product. If we're using, I think you guys probably mostly use Google products like Gmail and all of that. So we know what we're getting whenever we interact with them because their brand is consistent across all of their platforms. The voice of the brand, sometimes we don't think about that unless we're really into copywriting, which I am, but the voice is how the brand comes across. And I'll give you some specific examples of that. And then the emotion that the brand wants us to feel. So companies are putting things out there that are meant to invoke certain emotions in us. Sometimes they want us to feel comforted. In the US a lot, we see that like insurance companies will have very comforting messages. We'll take care of you if something goes wrong. There are some companies that maybe want you to feel a little bit of fear, like home security companies might have a commercial where they show someone robbing someone. They'll be like, okay, we have a product that can help you with this, but they want you to feel a little bit of fear so you feel like you need their product. So the different emotions can come through there. A lot of brands just go for happy, or they want people to feel good consuming their products. So that can vary depending on the brand. So I've got a couple of examples. Brands are very strict. Good brands are very strict about how people use their brand guidelines and their brand strategy. So they'll actually have brand principles or brand guidelines that everyone who works with the brand has to follow. So this is the example from Uber. These are the principles that they're trying to promote through their brand. So they want to seem like they're hyper efficient. They want things to be uncomplicated, very easy for the end user. They want everything to be very easy to understand. So they use like bold images that say, you're going to pay now. This is what this handing you a coin means. And then they want to be inspirational. So I think this might be kind of a stretch for a brand like Uber, but they say they want to embrace magical realism to create compelling images. Again, I think that's a lofty goal for Uber, but they're wanting people to feel inspired to use the service. Another one that we don't always think about is even just typeface usage. I can't remember, I'm sorry, where this example came from, but this is a brand guideline for typeface, and they've given options for each placement of where you might be using a font, basically. So they understand that different font packages are available on different systems. So they've given you options depending on what you have available to you. This is the font you should be using. So it can be brand principles or brand strategy guidelines can be really, really strict and sometimes come across like, oh, if they're that worried about my font, I don't even want to bother. But for these types of brands that are staying consistent with their imagery, it's important because the more we see that as end users, the more we associate that imagery with that brand. If I saw a Google page right now and it didn't have its usual font, I would probably kind of wonder, like, what has happened here? Is this still Google, or is someone spoofing a Google page, or, why is this like this? I would have doubts about the page then. So we don't always notice it, but sometimes it's very subtle, but we start to associate the imagery with the brand. This is one of my favorite parts, the voice of the brand. This is MailChimp is a email marketing tool that you can use to send mass emails and basically track to see who's opened it or what's performing best, who's clicked on what links, and you can kind of get a good measure of what products people are interested in or what information people are interested in when you send the email, because it tracks everything for you. So you can see on the back end after you send the email what the end user is experiencing. I like MailChimp because it's really easy to use and because they're kind of cheeky about their messaging on the back end. So they have a really clear guide for how they want that messaging to go through. So like if I send out an email via MailChimp, they'll have a little pop-up box that says like, good job, you sent out this email. Thanks for using MailChimp. But instead of just saying that, they say something like, fine piece of work, you deserve a raise, which I think is cute and fun. But they've gone so far as to think about, okay, what's the end user thinking? How are they feeling after they send this campaign? After they finish a hard day's work of building email campaigns, it's not a super hard day, but after they finish a day's work of building email campaigns, they may be feeling relief and pride and joy, maybe anticipation of knowing what kind of interaction and engagement they're getting in their email. So if we anticipate that the end user is feeling all of these things, we want to give them a pat on the back to encourage them and say, hey, you did a good job today. And we understand that you're feeling happy, you're feeling relieved. We want to be kind of cute and funny about this. So that's the kind of thought processes that brands go through whenever they're deciding what they're going to say to their end users. These are also, a lot of times restaurants and bars will have really good examples of brand voices. So you can like look at the menus or the websites of the restaurants, or sometimes they've got the little like table tents on the table that have extra menu items. A lot of times those are some of my favorite examples of brand voice too, because they can really show like the fun side of the brand in a way that also promotes a product that they offer. This one is a good example from the Dallas-Fort Worth International Airport. So if you've ever flown through there, they're good at branding. And they've given examples of using voice for their tweets and their social media. So they've given examples of, you know, here's what we're basically trying to say, but can we say this in a better way? So they've got 3 principles. First, they want to keep everything they say simple. They want to put what matters first, and they want to use enthusiasm in their post. So instead of saying, join the workforce of a dynamic organization, DFW continues to seek motivated individuals to join the team. View our openings below. They're asking for people to apply for jobs. They're keeping it a little bit shorter and faster and putting what matters first, and they're being a little more enthusiastic about it. So we're going places here at DFW, kind of a play on words there. Literally, if you go to Dallas-Fort Worth Airport, you're going places. They're saying your career can also go places here. Shouldn't you be a part of it? Your journey to something great starts here. So maybe not as direct as just we've got job openings, but they're trying to put a little bit of their voice and their brand personality into this LinkedIn post. I liked this one too. We've updated the TSA checkpoint hours and pre-check lane locations on our website, and then they've just tagged the TSA. So now we're saying even more on time opportunities, find new TSA and pre-check lane locations and hours at the airport. So sometimes just even subtle tweaks can help your brand voice be a little bit more on brand than just saying something blandly or just directly. This is an example that makes me get teary-eyed every time I play it, but I'll still play it for you. This one goes into the emotion piece. So this is a Nike ad that they've meant to invoke emotion for you. So I hope it plays for you. Will you guys let me know if the sound doesn't work?
ايش حيقولوا عنك؟ انك مو المفروض تكوني هنا. ولكن أنت ما هي لعبتك، أو يمكن يكون أنك قوية ما حد يقدر يوقفك، إنك حتلاقي طريقك. قدر أعطيني حتسيني شيء كبير.
Okay. Does anybody want to be brave and kind of try to guess at what emotions that Nike was trying to make us feel with that ad?
I would
To
say
be
confident.
bold. Yeah, to be bold, courageous, take risks, fight for what you want. All this.
Yeah, for sure. They're wanting to empower us, right? They're showing us women who are doing amazing things, and maybe that traditionally women haven't been expected to do, right?
Sam, Enzo said that they are trying to make the viewer feel their determination.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you,
Feel
Enzo.
determined.
Yeah.
Yes, thank you, Enzo.
Did you notice any blatant product shots for Nike in that ad? Yeah, there were a handful, but they never said, here's our new shoe, buy this new shoe. Here's this workout gear, buy this workout gear. No, it was just a subtle, like, here's Nike spread throughout this, but really we want you to feel determined and strong and bold and brave, and we want you to do these things that maybe you've been told you can't do, and we want to help you get there. So they're trying to invoke the emotion of determination and bravery and boldness instead of, again, a more direct, like, buy our shoe. So a lot of times the brand's voice and emotion can help sell their product in less direct ways, but more powerful ways. I feel more attached to Nike because of messages like this than I would if they just had a website that said, here's our products, buy them. So brands know this, and they work on that very strategically. This is the slide I added right before this presentation because I got an email that was talking about, again, sorry, this is a very US example, but there is a directive that the governor of Texas has put out saying that parents who allow their children to get pediatric gender affirming healthcare or have trans children, that is going to be child abuse. A lot of people have spoken out against that because there's lots of people living with trans children who are helping them to seek healthcare. So a lot of people are very nervous about this. And it is fascinating that over 60 very large corporations like Google and Apple, H&M, The Gap have signed this letter saying that discrimination is bad for businesses. So if Texas is going to do this, we would like to take our business to a place where families with trans family members can feel safer. So basically they're calling on the governor of Texas and saying, great, if you think this is a good idea for Texas, do it, but we'll take our business elsewhere, which could be potentially huge for a state, any state or country. We're also seeing it in Russia right now. Russia has seen a lot of brands like Starbucks, Target pull out of Russia, right? Or not Target, Starbucks has pulled out of Russia to say, we're not doing business in Russia right now. And on the flip side, Russia has shut down Instagram in Russia. So brands and countries can take action or social stances on issues. And that maybe before the last 5 years or so, I think a lot of people were like, nope, I just want to buy your products. Keep your hands out of whatever social issue is going on. But increasingly, brands are being asked to weigh in on these things or being asked to take a stance. And sometimes they're asked not to. Sometimes, especially in the US over the last 2 years, especially after all of the protests after the death of George Floyd, we saw a lot of brands saying, yeah, Black Lives Matter. But then we saw a lot of people saying, but you don't do anything to support Black lives. So there's a fine line that brands need to walk there before they decide to take a stance. They need to look at what their practices are and what they're actually doing for some of these social issues before they just say, yeah, discrimination is bad. They need to actually demonstrate that they've done something to end discrimination. So that's been a huge topic in the US lately, in the past couple of years. I anticipate that that's also been an issue in Brazil. It seems like it's been kind of a worldwide thing right now. So I wanted to add this slide just to, like, brands taking stances on that is also part of the brand and brand strategy. And yeah, it's just nice that they're doing it. It's nice that people are speaking out like that, but sometimes it's also good for business. So we'll see brands increasingly do that, I think. This is another one of my favorite things that you can do as a brand, and this is just a funny example. This is from a British advertising agency. So brands need to look at where their brand stands in relation to other brands. So this is this advertising agency's Santa guide for Santa, and they were listing out their brand assets, and they went to do a perception map of who's occupying Santa's space. So I'll read this to you just in case it's too small on your machine. The greatest assets of any brand are its brand assets. Our critical asset duopoly is volume of beard, beardiness, beard, and fused with extent of fat, fattiness, because we want our Santas to be beardy and fat, right? So the schematic here geographicalizes us and our key competitors on the fattiness, beardiness spectrum. So they've listed here that if Santa, they feel that Santa is the fattest and beardiest of anybody in this space. Hagrid from Harry Potter is right up there. So he's entering our reputational space, might be someone that's kind of stepping on our brand's toes. And then we go all the way down to Miley Cyrus, neither fat nor beardy. So she's not a competitor for us yet. We don't need to worry about her. I don't know who the fat controller is, but apparently he has max fattiness. Gandalf is a little bit better of an example, I think, from the Lord of the Rings. He's beardy, but not fatty. So brands will do this with their competitors too, just to say, you know, if I'm a clothing company, I want to know where other clothing companies are positioning themselves on the market, and I want to be aware of where my position is. So I'll pick a couple of different factors and say, okay, on fattiness and beardiness, this is where I land versus my competitors. Obviously, it wouldn't be on fattiness or beardiness, but that was a fun example, I thought. So I gave this example. Everybody around the world knows Apple. I don't know if you've studied marketing at all, you know about their Think Different campaign. I won't make you watch the video because it's like 8 minutes long, but Apple came up with the Think Different campaign in the 80s when they first became a competitor to the PC. And basically, look it up. It is a really good ad, even 30 years later. But basically, the ad showed someone smashing a PC and saying all of these great thinkers have used something else. They've always thought outside the box. They've thought different. So Apple built their brand reputation on being a brand used by creative problem solvers, risk takers, people who were like Nike, going to be big and bold. So they built this entire brand strategy around that kind of campaign. So I'm sure you guys have used or seen Apple products and used or seen their promotional things. I think in a lot of ways that they might still be trying for that. I think we see a lot of creative type ads around that. We saw a lot in the US around the pandemic about how you could use Apple's products to stay in touch and work together creatively still. But I think perhaps that in the US market, they have flooded, there's so many Apple users that maybe it's not that different anymore. If everyone has one, I don't think you can really be called unique, but they still kind of try to operate on that brand strategy. Okay, so these are a couple I added. I got really excited about, there is a group called, now I've forgotten where I got this. Oh my gosh, HubSpot, I think. They track digital marketing trends, especially social media trends, and they have had a couple that they had listed for this year of 2022, and I was really fascinated by a couple of them. So raise your little like reaction or something. Are you guys using TikTok? Okay, Letitia is. Juliana's with me.
I'm not really using, but I know that they are using and I end up seeing what they're doing. I don't do it myself.
Yep, Joyce is using it. Okay. Yeah, I'm same, Susie. People send me TikToks, but I can't download it because I would spend too much time on it. So people send me the ones they think I would like. But TikTok has been a really fascinating brand strategy or really fascinating study in brand strategy for social media.
And Marina said that she likes to see the memes, and Sophia said yes.
Okay, so yes, we are TikTok users. So you guys, you know about the algorithms, right? Like the algorithms are showing you what you want to see on TikTok. And they've done a really good job of building what you want to see. So TikTok has been a really great example of kind of online communities forming that brands don't have anything to do with. Brands have not strategized this, they haven't planned it, but we're still seeing brands have online communities form around them, or like the Santa, like near their perceptual space. So the smart brands this year, or over the next 6 months or whatever, are gonna try to join those communities. There are some, and I listed Nike again. I promise I'm not just a huge Nike fangirl, but they do a good job at branding. Some brands are big enough and have enough like perceived fame that social media users feel like they could benefit if they participate in whatever brand strategy or brand promotion is happening. So a good example that they listed in this report was Nike is having, I don't know why that stopped, okay. Nike has a feature on their website now that you can custom make your own Nikes. You can pick out the fabrics and the colors and whatever. And a lot of people are sharing their custom Nikes on social media. So there was already kind of a sneakerhead, I don't know if that's translate to Portuguese, but in the US, we would call them sneakerheads, people who are really into their sneakers. So that community already existed online. People were already talking about those things online. And Nike saw it as a good entry point to say, these conversations are happening. Our shoes are already part of the conversation, but how can we shift the discussion just a little bit more so that it's even more exciting and new, and there's something new to say about Nikes. So they've offered this service where they custom make Nikes and it re-enters them in the conversation. They're able then to collaborate with users who are making content about these new shoes to say, hey, you know, I saw you made this TikTok about your new Nikes. Let's work together. I'm going to amplify your platform. Yeah, Enzo, it is a fantastic example of interactive marketing. And I think Nike is good at branding and they're good at marketing. So they saw this as a really early, easy opportunity for them. And I think other brands will start to move in this direction too. The important thing though is that brands that are not huge like Nike have a really good opportunity to do this. It doesn't cost anything to move into these communities online. All that you need is creativity to fit into those communities. So if there's a brand out there who's wanting to have this huge online presence, I think that the advice for them would not be to say, okay, you have to have 5,000 followers on your Instagram I think the advice would be to say, okay, find a community that's talking about what you're doing, the product that you offer, the service that you offer. Find a community that's talking about that space and get into that community. Work with the influencers who are in that community, see what they're saying about you already. I think that's something that we have seen brands fail at before too. They think, oh, I'll just get online and I'll start talking about my product or service. And they miss the opportunity to listen to what consumers are already saying about their product. So I thought this one was a fun example. And then this is kind of deviating from brands, but I thought this was pretty interesting too, because historically, or in the last couple of years, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, and LinkedIn have led on what people are actually spending for social media marketing. So in actual ad sales that brands are spending, those four have led the cost. But we're seeing a lot of moves into TikTok, obviously, because everyone's on TikTok. But then Pinterest and Snapchat were interesting to me. Snapchat, I think, because they have they're very direct in their marketing guidelines for brands to say, don't make an ad, join the conversation. And I think that's really, really smart of Snapchat to do, because they don't want Snapchat users to feel like, oh, I'm getting on Snapchat and I'm just seeing all of these ads. They want users to feel like that the ads are a seamless part of their Snapchat experience. And I think TikTok and Pinterest are good at that too. Pinterest also says, don't make ads, share ideas that inspire, which is pretty brilliant. And I listed this furniture company. I can't remember what the company is called. I think they're based I don't know, they're based somewhere in Europe. But they are really good at showing their furniture products, but in a room. So on Pinterest, we go and we look at inspiration for decoration or cooking or creative ideas for home or whatever you look at Pinterest for. But the good brands are offering their products in that scope. So this furniture company, I think they're selling this sofa, but they've showed you what it looks like in a room that they've styled that matches the sofa. So they're giving you inspiration and creativity instead of just listing their sofa on a black or like a green screen. They're giving you ideas. TikTok is doing the same thing. TikTok has also said, don't make ads, like join TikTok, like make TikToks. So some of these companies, I think, are doing a better job at being more strategic about how they ask advertisers to participate. And actually, that's a good example of branding too. So I think for maybe Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, maybe they grew too fast and just didn't think about these things whenever they thought, oh, we can start having people advertise and pay us to advertise. Maybe they were just so excited about making money that they didn't think about this. But TikTok and Pinterest and Snapchat have gotten to watch how that worked for them. And they get to watch how Instagram users interact with Instagram ads. And they say, we don't want there to be an ad like that on TikTok. We want it to be a more seamless experience for the end user. This chart just shows the ad spend. So the yellow is what they plan to increase this year. So I thought that, to be honest, I don't even know what Clubhouse is, but 47% of the brands that they surveyed in this plan to spend more on Clubhouse and Snapchat. Pinterest, they plan to spend 45% more. I also thought it was interesting that they have a lot of brands, like over 20% of brands in most categories plan to decrease their advertising money on social media this year. So that tells me, this is just a jump I'm making, but it makes me guess that brands are going to try to be better about joining that conversation rather than just serving advertisements to end users. And then again, this is kind of a shift, but whenever I teach this to my intro class, and I like them to think about what their personal brand is as well. So for the class that I usually teach this in, it's a freshman level class. So they're starting to think about, like, who am I as a person? What am I doing with my life? What's gonna be my plan? So has anybody thought about what a personal brand is before? and want to share?
I think it's something that would be fit for special ages or tastes or ideas. I don't know. That's what comes to me.
Thank you, Susie.
I think it's just so difficult to think about it. It's just like choosing personal style.
I mean,
Like,
that's
oh,
a
this is
big
good.
part of it.
This is going to be my style forever.
Yeah, I think that's a big part of it.
I mean, if you just knows that today I'm using skirts with a cute dress, and tomorrow I'm gonna be dressing like a dark outfit,
Yeah,
you know. And I think branding is about consistency. It is about who you are, who you think, what you think. I'm sorry, and things about it. I don't know. It's
I-
difficult to define it, right?
It's interesting because when you talked, I thought of hair things, because those are perfume, makeup or food. They really try to focus on who are you and what you're going to do with this. I don't know. It came to my mind that.
Yeah, I think, Susie, that's because usually when we think of branding, we think of what a brand looks like. Like we think of the brand's logo and what colors they use. But if we think about it more holistically and we think about the brand's voice and what emotions they want us to feel, I think then it gets easier to think about a personal brand. So this is what I share with my freshman students. Yeah, and so Elon Musk is definitely an example of someone who has just created this huge personal brand and this image that, like, when you say Elon Musk, everyone knows exactly who you're talking about, and they have a very specific picture in mind of who he is and what he does. And whether it's positive or negative, like, people have an idea of what his brand is. And that's the same thing like all of us to build. Oh, sorry.
I was gonna say, since the girls were talking about styles, I saw that a lot of people are teaching you how to dress up for online meetings. So like what earrings to wear and what necklace to wear to so you can talk about personal brand only from like here up. What makeup to wear, like what do you try to show people, So I thought that was crazy because it's such a small little area, but it can tell so much about you.
Yeah. So yeah, we want to think about all these things as we build and develop what our personal brand is. So how we present ourselves physically is a huge part of that. What we wear, how we're styling our hair. So that's all the aesthetic side of our personal brand. When we get into more of the voice, to me, that's some of these, like, my unique identity, what I stand for, those things that I voice or I share my ideas about, but you might not know those things if you just saw me. And then some of the emotion stuff I think fits in there too. So basically, like, what values you demonstrate, how you demonstrate those values, what your unique identity is. I took out a couple of examples because I didn't know if culturally it would play, but there's a college culture for a lot of younger students in the US. I don't know if these are a thing in Brazil. I hope they're not, because I think they're annoying, but there's these big flags that everybody hangs from their dorms or from their, like, balconies of their apartments that say Saturdays are for the boys. And it's this cultural phenomenon that has happened. It's like the Saturdays are for partying with the boys. Like, I'm not worried about girls. I'm worried about partying with my guys, and we're drinking and we're having a good time. And, like, that's what it is. So I always list that as it's not necessarily like taking on this persona of I'm going to only identify with this Saturdays are for the boys type of culture. There's also, has seltzer made its way to Brazil, like alcoholic seltzer? There's a specific seltzer brand called White Claw in the US, and there is a saying that there ain't no laws when you're drinking claws. Like, no rules if you're drinking claws with the girls. So I always list that those are not your personal brand. Those can be things you do on the weekend. Those can be like things that you say and it's fun, but you shouldn't build your entire personal brand around being that person. So we want to, like Juliana just mentioned this, like, and Susie mentioned it, we tend to, Marina did, we tend to present different pieces of ourselves to different audiences, right? So if I'm thinking of myself as a business, I have different audiences or different target markets that I'm trying to appeal to, right? So personal versus professional, that can be different. And I always remind my class, my students, I'm not saying that you should become someone else to appease a certain type of person or to do something, but just be aware of how you're coming across for those different audiences. So I talk about personal versus professional. The personal side, like those could be our professors, our supervisors, our coworkers, administration at the university. They're the people that we want to seem serious to them. We want to seem like someone who is employable, someone who is responsible, someone who can get things done and can be trusted. But those things are all true of the personal side too. So how we present ourselves on social media, when we go on real life dates or on dating apps, there's a lot to be thought about whenever you're thinking of your personal brand on a dating app. And then in real life interactions, just how we're letting ourselves be perceived by others. And again, I will always reiterate, you want to be yourself. You don't want to say, oh, I'm building this personal brand and now I'm doing this. That's not what you want. But I always encourage my students to think about what their personal brand is and how that's perceived by other people. And a lot of times my students will say, well, I thought about it. And when I thought about it, I thought my personal brand was this. But when I think about how others might perceive that, I'm not getting across these things that are really important to me. So I've adjusted because I want people to know that I think that this issue is really important, but I haven't ever shared that, or I haven't ever voiced that opinion. So I asked them to think about what their brand is and what the different audiences that they cater to basically are. And I always encourage them to think separately about online versus in real life. So IRL, in real life, because I think we all probably have examples of people we know only on social media that in real life, they seem very different. So think about how you interact with people online and in real life. And these are the questions I ask them because it is really hard to think about what our personal brand is. So I ask them to think about what they excel at, in what classes they excel, or what social situations they excel, or in what jobs they've excelled at. And then what motivates me? Are they motivated by doing well? Are they motivated by getting good feedback? Are they motivated by making more money? Like, find the things that motivate you. This one I like because people have to think about it, but what do people compliment you about a lot? Like, that's something that people are noticing about you. So that's probably already a part of your brand, even if you haven't thought about it. But if people keep saying like, oh, Susie is very kind, she's always very thoughtful about her comments, or Juliana is always very well presented in her Zoom boxes. Like, she always looks very professional. Like, if people are always saying that type of thing to you, that's probably already part of your brand. This one is also a good question that I like to ask myself. Where do I frequently need help? Like, do I frequently think going to this party is going to be so hard? I don't want to go by myself. I need a friend for this. So maybe social butterfly is not my brand. That's not true of me. That is my brand. But think about those things that you often have to ask other people for help or input. And maybe that's part of your brand that you don't need to develop. Same with what drains my energy. If it really drains your energy to go to parties or go out and be social, like, that doesn't have to be your brand. I always have a student ask, like, whenever they go through these questions of where do I need help and what drains my energy, I always have a couple of students who say, oh, well, is that something I need to work on? Like, do I need to practice these things? And I think it's up to you. Like, if that's something that you would like to be better at, sure. go for it. If you want it to be a part of your brand, your personal brand, practice it. But if it's draining your energy at a certain point, you might think, no, I just know this about myself. It's not a part of who I am. So I'm done with that. And then finally, again, you want to be yourself. You want people to perceive you as yourself. So think about what traits you actually want to be known for. Think about how you'd like people to see you. Not to not be yourself, but just think about what traits you want to put forward first. So that's my ending thing on personal brands that I always give to my intro class when I give this lesson. And that is my last slide. I'll leave this up here, but if anybody has any questions or any comments or wants to talk through anything that we talked about.
I think this is fantastic because especially for adolescents, not knowing themselves is what makes them so nervous for so many situations, right? And if they take time thinking of this and getting to know themselves, they will be less affected by all this pressure from the surrounding, right? The peers. I don't know, I think.
Yeah, I definitely wish someone would have had this conversation with me in high school. Would have probably been helpful. Maybe in middle school, actually, that probably would have been even more helpful.
I also, Sam, I didn't give it too much of a thought back then when I was going to college, but that's totally a lot of things that we can think about when choosing what we want to study and where we want to study, what type of university, because universities are brands as well. And like you said, we are our own brands. So is that a good match or not? That's something I didn't give it too much of a thought.
I'm glad you reminded me of that, Juliana. I'd given a presentation that said that, and I couldn't find that presentation. But I do encourage students who are looking for a university to think about that. I think thinking about your personal brand is easier if you think about it like a business would. Like if we go back to those, here's what a business's brand is, and then I can kind of be like, okay, well, if I apply those same principles to myself, and I think about it in those terms, it's a little easier for me because that feels more tangible than just kind of doing a self-reflection. But I think it's important to kind of do that same practice for a university that you're looking at, to say exactly what Juliana said. You know, these are my strengths. This is what I want to be. Does this university offer matching strengths, will they match my goals? Will they help me achieve those things? And frankly, beyond university, you can do the same thing when you start a job. One of our graduate assistants is job searching right now, and she's basically doing a cost benefit analysis of 2 different offers she's gotten. And so she's having to think through, you know, which of these offers fits my goals. But what she's essentially doing is deciding which brand that she wants to go with, or which brand she wants to be associated with. And some of my coworkers and I have joked, like, the same thing does really apply for dating or friendship relationships too. Like you're choosing who you want to be in your life, and sometimes being more thoughtful about what your personal brand is can help you better choose the people you surround yourself with. Any other questions or comments students do? Enzo, thank you for speaking up so much. I think somebody else did. Oh, Sophia, thank you too.
Thank you, Sam. That was great.
Well, thank you, Sam. I just need to have a really quick talk with the students. I'll be right back to English, okay? E aí, pessoal, tudo bem? Foi demais a aula da Sam, né? Então, a Efige está fazendo um sorteio no Instagram, eu não sei se vocês viram, de uma vaga para o programa My Way Squad. Então, é só vocês entrarem no Instagram, lerem as regras e participar, tá bom? O My Way é o nosso programa de aconselhamento. Então, fiquem de olho aí que de manhã a gente vai sortear, viu? Teacher Suzy, fala para todo mundo, hein? E
Pode
é
deixar,
isso,
vou botar a
gente.
boca no trombone.
Isso aí, beleza.
Boa noite, gente. Muito obrigada, viu?
Okay, so that was it. Thank you so much, Samantha. I think your class was really clear about how brands work with us and how we can work our brand, right? And what they're selling, how they decide what to sell and how to show it to us and their identities. Thank you so much for your time and bye-bye. It was
Thank
lovely
you.
to meet you.
Thank you all for participating.
Thank you so much.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you also, Juliana.